with your words.
That's right. Who came up with that?
Or wait, that way?
No, you're the
Yeah,
right way around. You're the right way around.
yeah. There you go.
I claim feverish stupor. That's what I claim for that one. Um,
Aw.
no. Actually, I like that. You know, personally, I think it's important. There's times in your life when what it comes down to is the only thing you have of real value is your word and your character. And all the other things they come and go. Money comes and goes, success comes and go, fame comes and go, everything else comes and goes. But the one thing that remains is who you are, and part of that external expression of who you are is your word. And it's really important that we do it. And it's not so much for other people and how they see us. If I'm being impeccable for my word because I want you to see me as being impeccable, I'm kind of like manipulating a little bit. But if I'm doing it because it represents who I am and it makes me feel complete and whole, and this is who I am, then that's where I want to be. So one thing I want to remind other people that maybe don't understand, sometimes being impeccable with your word means don't say anything. Sometimes if you're not sure, I've fallen into these things, and even recently I've had to step back a little bit from a lot of my projects because I started putting my word out there everywhere, and I couldn't fulfill that. And it started to reflect on me with others, but more importantly, it reflected on me. I wasn't sleeping right. I wasn't feeling right. So sometimes it simply means taking a step back and, not being so quick to just throw your word out there. But that's where I'm at with that. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts about being impeccable with their word and what it means to them. Forget what it means to the world about being a good person. What does it mean to you?
Well,
Lynn?
if I could start real quick and say that, as as with my parents and stuff, I learned, it's one thing that, you get promises and promises and that your parents don't keep it. And I did 95% of the time. I always tried. Granted, I didn't know I had a sick stomach and things like that, but most of the time I promised my kids thing, and we didn't realize I was sick. But other than that, I always, I never promised my kids things that I knew I couldn't do for them because I knew how that felt. And then being in business for myself for 15 years, you learn real quick that, people's word. I mean, like you said, sometimes in life you can't pay a bill or you can't do this and that. The one thing you shouldn't do, and I used to work as in a financing department, and you didn't pay your car. I used to, be the one to, car v garden in the driveway. It was my fault. But
That
one thing
was
that
you?
always got that was always me saying to people, and I'd call them, I'd give them a big clue. Look, don't tell me you're paying me this Friday, not pay me Friday, because I can't help what's going to happen next.
I
How
can't
about if we make
imagine
it?
you doing
How
that.
about if we make it next Friday? So, I mean, that's one thing I've learned. And, being a peace officer, everything you say can will be held against you. So, if anything else, why say things that will be held against you? So those are the reasons why I try to do the best. And I mean, I try to offer to do things, and then I realize I'm overbooked. But really, like you said, sometimes you got to step back, do what you can, and realize that you can't do everything or be everything to everybody. And this one topic is based out of the 4 agreements, which Selby mentioned. Barry, I think maybe we should touch on another agreement the next week. But these agreements are really, really cool. So those are my 2 cents. And Mr. Rex is in the middle, or who we haven't heard in a while, and we've given the floor is maybe Mr. Steve Rizzo.
Steve!
Scott,
Yo!
it's good to see you all. It's good to be back. Yeah, I think this is a really good topic because when I started speaking, you talk about being impeccable word. I always knew that the two gifts that I had to captivate an audience was my sense of humor and my ability to tell a story. Those I always considered as my God-given gifts. But as I started moving on with my life, I realized there was another aspect of myself that was even more powerful than that. And that's when I became and I realized how important it was to be vulnerable to my audience when I speak to them. And it was that vulnerability that really, really made me connect with my audience. And what I mean by that is that I am not afraid to tell people what I went through in my life or what I'm currently going through. And it's amazing the feedback that you get when you actually can be on that platform and express your weaknesses and parts of you that you're still working on. Because when you're a personal development / motivational speaker, people in the audience are looking at you as someone who has all the answers, which is a wrong perception for them to have, but they do have it. You have the answers. You know it all, and you got it together. And when I let them know that I'm still going through shit in my life, I'm still carrying a lot of stuff. The connection is so powerful with the audience because I know they're sitting there going, "Wow, if he went through that and still going through that, and he's where he is, there's hope for me." Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
And
Yes.
to be impeccable with what I think it's so crucial, not just in my profession, but in any relationship. I think relationships will last longer if you will allow yourself to allow that person that you're or the group that you're trying to communicate with that you have your weaknesses too. You have your problems just like everyone else. You don't come at them like you're saying the poor me story. You just tell them the way it is. I'm working through it. I know I will. The answer will reveal itself. But right now, this is what I'm going through. When people see that part of you, there's an instant connection. And I think that's what it means to have impeccable work, to be impeccable.
I love that. Not Scott Jonesy. I'm going to go next to Scott Hipster because he's also in the speaking arena as well. And that, you know, to have it balanced from two people's perspective is like fantastic. So, Mr. Hipster.
But you know, I mean, it's so true. Your words, your words are your bond, and you know, we talk. I've said it before on the show. I've known speakers who walk into a room. There's 15 rows, uh, 10 on each side. That totals 300 if you can do math, right? 15 times 20 is 300 seats. And then they come to the front of the stage and say, "Oh, look, we have an overflow crowd, over 500 people here." And, you know, the 300 chairs are full. Well, why not be happy with the 300 chairs being full? You know, you've got a full house one way or the other.
Yep.
Why do you have to throw a number behind it, which is a false number? And quite frankly, if you ever you utter a falsehood from stage, and somebody can verify and validate it, then it puts everything else you say in question. And so why would you want to put a number out there that somebody can easily say is wrong because it you know takes away all the credibility you built. So in the speaking business, your word has to be your bond. You have to do it. And if it's not, that's why, I mean, I've said it many times on the show. I've shared the stage with every good one and every less than good one. You know, I can tell you who the good ones are and who the
And those less than good ones think they're the great ones.
Well, and that's exactly it. The less than good ones think they're the great ones because they're throwing a bunch of hooey out there.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't make any sense. You know, it's interesting. You know, I was blessed to be able to do a summit with Rex last week. Did 2 different radio shows yesterday. And man, it was awesome to be able to share to the very best of the questions being asked and the knowledge gained over years and the butt kickings I've taken and all the different stuff. And I really came away from the shows and I went, that was freaking awesome that you were able to help somebody and they were so grateful for that help because as Steve said, you're vulnerable. I mean, you tell the truth, novel concept. Anybody who hasn't had their ass kicked in this environment is freaking lying. There
Yeah.
ain't anybody who's come through the last 3 years and not had some portion of their world turned upside down. You had to.
And when you admit that, Scott, don't you agree that, wow, you enter into this comfort zone? You just feel so, because you don't mind expressing you. You know what I mean?
I mean, the fact is, the other side is you become relatable. You know, if anybody sits there and says, "Oh, I've come through the last 3 years totally untouched, and it's been the best 3 years of my life," run, get away from them, because they have lost their sense of reality. Because there's nothing in this world that's normal. At this, there's that, and I hate the term, the new normal. I don't think anything's ever normal, quite frankly. I think it's always evolving. But when you say it the way it is, and if gosh, I did an event in Pittsburgh on Saturday, and one of the speakers came on stage, and his first words were, "Okay, any of you snowflakes and corn puffs, you will probably be upset by something I say, so why don't you just start right away?" It was awesome. It was so cool that he just came out and said, "I'm going to say some things, and there are going to be some people in this audience that don't agree with me, and I don't care, because I'm going to speak truth." And it, like you say, Steve, it's refreshing. It opens you up. It allows you to do it. And again, not to be nasty or mean or anything like that. That's not the idea. But your word should be your bond. Your word should be something that people can count on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then next, Mr. Speaker, actor, just an amazing mentor. I got to meet in person finally. Just Mr. Rex Sykes. I love you so much.
And an all-around nice guy.
That's right, he is. And he'll tell like it is.
Stop that. Don't you dare talk to me like that, Steve Rizzo. Wow, well, thank you for that introduction, both of you. Yeah, I had a lovely time with Mr. Schilling, Scott, in the summit, and what value he brings to everything he does. And so thank you for that, Scott. Wow, this is so much. The 4 agreements are part of a larger set of agreements. Someone just popularized it as 4 because it's an easier sale. They've been around for thousands of years, and people forget that some of the wisdom, and I don't mean to detract from the 4 agreements, the book or the author or any of this, but the point is, your word is your bond, has been around forever, and it's been ignored forever by the majority of people. So it's great that somebody put out a book to remind us, keep your gosh darn word. Oh, there we are. Look at that. Look at that. Very cool. No, that's sweet. I love that. It was a good meeting. And not only that, but you know what? She bought me dinner and then fed it and then wanted to send me home with dinner. And I'm like, no, you keep it. But not because it wasn't fabulous, because it was, but because she bought it. Let her.
Aww.
I hope you all ate it. No, anyway, it was great. Thank you. There's so many issues right now. First, I want to address something Scott said about manipulation. To manipulate means to move from one place to another. There's nothing wrong with honest, good, legitimate manipulation when you're trying to help somebody go from where they are to where they want to be. It's not so good when you're trying to manipulate them or move them into your pocket or take stuff from their pocket and put it into yours because you don't have the goods to deliver. So all of it has to do with integrity. And the issue with a lot of the speakers and the personal help, somebody just called me right but while we were starting the show and said, hey, these guys want to be personal development people. What do you think about that? The interesting thing is there are so many people, what Scott said, good and the not so good speakers. Well, some of those good speakers are not so good people. And some of the not so good speakers are really good people. I mean, you have to keep in mind that not everybody is talented or a shiny object or has the marketing wherewithal to be the number 1 or the top 10 of something. But just because they're top 10 may not mean that they're delivering the goods, but that they're able to sustain themselves through marketing and through what they do. I've been in this business like close to 50 years, and I've watched people walk in and they count heads and go, like Scott would say, there's 300 chairs. So they count heads and go, well, the 300 people have paid $1 a piece. That's $300. Or they paid $1,000 a piece. That's, and they go, whoa, I can make money doing this, instead of going, I really want to help people. The why I'm here in this show, by the way, is because every single person on this platform has had some experience in their life where they went, you know what? It's not just about me, but I can help people. From my experience, I can help people. I love people. I want to do this. And if they make money at it, and if they sell things or whatever, God bless them. I mean, some people think if you're helping people, you should never sell anything. You should never talk about anything. You should never market anything. All you need to really do, in my estimation, is keep your word, deliver the goods, act with integrity, and be honest and transparent. And then if you sell it for $1 or for $10,000, it doesn't matter, as long as the value that they get exceeds the value that costs them to get it. And there's nothing wrong with high price or low price. It's just what is it that you deliver? And that's the key. If you can deliver transformation, if you can move a person from one place to another place, whether it's romantically, financially, from the sadness to happiness, whether it's lose weight or gain weight, whatever it may be, if you're able to do that, and you charge, and you fulfill the criteria that I just listed, I say go for it. It's the people who don't do that,
Yeah.
but say that they do that are the issue. So buyer beware, but also don't be cynical, be skeptical but open. And with that, I pass.
And I'm gonna say, this is the reason why I have the people that I have on my show. These are people that I trust and believe in, because there's just so many people that are not. And I have a link later to put from the podcast from yesterday. So thank you, Scott Hipster.
May I make one more point?
Yes. Before
to Debbie and her birthday. You get to celebrate your birthday for as many days as you are old prior to your birthday, then your birthday, and then as many days as you are old after your birthday. If you're 10, you get 21 days. If you're 50, you get 101 days to celebrate. That's the law. That's the rule. I said it. I'm laying it down. Debbie, go celebrate.
And
again,
no, her birthday was in June. But
how could that be if it was in June? That's
June 29th.
Well, she's 147, Steve.
Well, amazing rule. That's what Debbie said. And this is not last nor least, but this Barry Selby, I love him. I appreciate him. He's got great wisdom. I like I said, if you're on my show, I endorse you, because so if you don't see some of these people on these shows, you better watch out. No, but Barry, bring it all full circle for us, Mr. Wise One.
What happened to Scott? He disappeared on us.
He'll be back, I'm sure.
He's getting chicken soup.
Yeah,
He's getting chicken soup for his soul.
So a couple of things. First, one is Rex, you lay out some great rules, which I definitely will abide by now, because especially as I'm getting older, I can get more days for my birthday. So thank you for that. So why not? But Scott, you said something about no income through the last 3 years and not have something transform, not be the same, not be great. I've had some things in my life that actually got a lot better because of the pandemic. So not everything by any means, but first of all, I got much better at Zoom, because I was useless at it before that. Lots of practice through 3 years. The second thing though is I got so frustrated being stuck at home, I started hiking, which I hadn't done in 20 years. And now I've been going every day for 3 years. So my fitness level has gotten better because I decided to take care of myself. And one of the best things I think anybody could have done during the last 3 years of the pandemic was to focus on self-care, which leads me into, nice segue, that the thing about being integrity with their words, being impeccable with their words, is that I would ask anybody watching this, how do you talk to yourself? Because most people are thinking about the words they put out in the world. What they forget about is the words they tell themselves without thinking about it, which oftentimes are debilitating and not healthy. So being impeccable with your word means also being impeccable with your self-word, with the words you tell yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you support yourself. Because a lot of people don't do that very well. If I could have done that better, I screwed up, I did this wrong, blah, 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 all these different things we use. And I'm not going to go too many of them because I don't want to affirm it for myself. But we oftentimes use negative terms about our own self, which means also that we play ourselves down around other people. And of course, as Scott was saying, and so did Rex, about people putting themselves on a higher pedestal to pretend they're better because they don't believe they are worthy of that. That's a whole other conversation. But one thing I want to add in this conversation too, about being impeccable. one of my pet peeves, and we talked about it in the show before, I know I've talked about this before, definitely a couple of times, is about when we tell people we're going to do something, do it, as in keep your agreements. The challenge is people say yes to things without realizing they're not going to do it, and then they get people viewing them with less than high esteem. So a couple of quick tips for agreement keeping is that when you make agreements, make them public, as in make them out loud. But there's 4 things to talk about agreements. One of which is when you make agreements, keep them. Now, one way to keep them is write them down so you don't have to worry about remembering them. One of my friends, David Allen, who created Getting Things Done, said, when somebody asked him why he write things down, he said not to remember them. He writes them down to forget them because he can just look at his notes and remember what he needs to remember. So first of all, write down your agreements so you remember what they are, if you're on your phone or on paper, whatever you use. Second one is if you have to change, because some people's lives do go sideways, renegotiate. Don't forget and then don't do it. Contact the person, text them, call them, say, I promised to meet you on Thursday. Can we make it next Monday because I'm booked this weekend? Fine, renegotiate. It's good to do. The third one, which is the biggest one for people that they don't do really well, is say no. Most people are so defaulting to say yes to things that they don't want to do in the first place. Better off saying no and be clean about it, because impeccability can also be saying no. So I highly recommend people say no more often, because frankly, if you don't, you're missing out on having your own time for yourself. Rex, you are jumping in there. I can feel it.
Well, I just wanted to add 2 things to what you said, because what you said was very beautiful. One is, your word is your bond to other people, but also to you. So if you say, I'm going to do something, like I'm going to go clean the house, then go clean the house. Don't violate your own promise to yourself, because that just sends the wrong message to you, that you're not a person who's apt to keep their word for yourself, and that can't have a good effect on your esteem. And what you said about making sure that your words to yourself are good, because there are people who are frauds and they can con people, but for most people, if you got a running negative dialogue, the words that you say to other people aren't going to be that good either. It's going to be a reflection of who you already are.
Yep.
Mic drop.
But what I would also add is there are people who say no and then go, well, okay. I mean, in other words, they don't keep their no. And it's okay to renegotiate, but there are people who just kind of wishy-washy and flip-flop and do all these things. So I go, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, okay, I'll do that. And then they don't do that. So I mean,
I know people like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just as important to keep your no as it is to keep your yes sometimes.
In fact, just to underscore the thing you said about that thing about keeping agreements with ourselves. That's the weakest agreement we usually make. First of all, when we make agreements with anybody, we're the ones starting it, so we're definitely involved in every agreement. But the second thing is, I respect, if you have issues with self-esteem or about not feeling worthy, notice where you keep breaking agreements with yourself. You don't want to go to the gym, or I'm going to go, or for New Year's resolutions are the biggest crock of these things people do. What's going on? It's like circling around, it's like carousel.
And like Debbie said,
I'm sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. I was just mimicking Scott. I don't know what he was doing.
and
I know
like,
it was very fun to watch.
like Debbie said, Barry had a lot of things going on to meet us, but he made time to meet us, and we really appreciate and adore and love him for that.
Thank you. But
here's something shiny for you, Rex.
So if I can make my point, finish this up. Damn.
That is a point.
This is why I love this room so much.
Barry, keep talking. There's a horse in there somewhere. Keep talking.
I didn't go there. That was going to be Scott's response, not yours. Wrong, Scott.
I'm looking at his yellow thing behind him.
Some of you need to go back and watch some of our other shows to know what the running jokes are.
Yeah, there's some
There are a few.
old.
I think the biggest thing, when you sit and I think there is, it's fascinating to me to listen to people in their self-talk and, how they beat the heck out of themselves consistently. And you're right, Rex. If you're talking to yourself bad, you're going to talk to everybody else bad too. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'd rather have somebody make fun of me for being overly positive or overly cheerful or happy or nice or anything to the positive side than to sit there and go, somebody can turn a bright sunny day into a big thunderstorm, it makes no sense,
So I-
and it's
so-
fascinating to me.
I would add, because you're making such a beautiful point, is conversely, somebody who talks nasty to everybody else is probably talking nasty to themselves. I mean, it's just
Yep.
it's either way. I mean,
Well, I related in my group last night, and I teach this stuff just like, quite frankly, we all do. High intention, low attachment. Have the intention, release it, allow it to come in, do all that. And I was telling a story on myself last night, how back in February I saw something and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? And in April, I got a call from them. Oh, let's go. I'm ready. And it took until last week for everything to happen. And who was the guy who had all the angst and was trying to make things happen and tried to force it and went, nicely done, dumbass. You're the guy who's teaching not to do that. But I called it on myself. And then I realized what another great lesson it is, that every time you think you've surrendered and every time you think that you've allowed, surrender more and allow more. You haven't done it yet. If whatever's supposed to show up is going to show up, and it's going to show up exactly when it's supposed to show up, and it's okay. But if you feel comfortable and confident in the efforts that you've taken to get to where you are, and the knowledge that you've gained along the way, and the mentors you've worked with and studied under, and you have all that stuff, somehow by accident it's going to spit out of you pretty good. It's going to happen at the right way at the right time, when the opportunity presents itself. And again, it's, it doesn't have to be changing the entire world. If all you do is positively impact a single life, you've done something pretty darn good, because that life can then be the next ripple and the next and the next and the next. But the ripple's got to start somewhere. You started it, and I was saying this, I think, on that show yesterday, that, 2 telling 2 telling 2 telling 2 32 and a half times covers everybody on the planet. But nobody wants to start with the first 2. They want the 1,000 or the 10,000 or the big numbers, or, but nobody's willing to do the, put the feet on the street and go do the work and take the time that it takes and spend time with people. As the older I get, the more I start to understand the value of time. And it's pretty dang amazing. And, last week I got on a flight, thought, oh, this is going to be so good. We pulled away from the gate. The pilot said, we got to pull it back in. We've got a minor service issue. For the next 45 minutes, they were working on the minor service issue to then announce, we need to deplane this plane. It's now out of service. We got to find another one. And you just watched people just go nuts. And I just sat and watched people, and all of a sudden they get us a new plane and they bring it right to the next gate. They couldn't have made it probably any more convenient. And yet people were just dying and ripping the airline and ripping everything. And oh my God. And then there were others that were just going, yeah, can we get an extra bag of pretzels? Because we've been waiting a little longer. So
can we have some fresh ones this time? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the events. The more you think about it, it's not the events that are going on. It's the responses to the events that determine those outcomes.
It's how you identify with it. Exactly.
Yep.
I fly a lot, and you always know when something's going wrong on the plane, because the captain comes on with his typical captain voice and they all sound the same. As soon as you hear, Well, folks, it looks like we're going to have to go back to the gate because we got a problem. And you hear that. As soon as you hear that, you're screwed. You're screwed. They go to school to talk like that. You know that, don't you? I swear to God, the guy goes home to his family. Well, what's for dinner, honey? How was school? Hey, they all talk like that. And as soon as you hear that, you just know, oh man, he's going to say something bad. But yeah, you're right. It's how you identify with the stuff that happens and how you relate to it is what makes the difference. And there are people that snap. Yeah.
And if you're still at the gate and you haven't moved, there's no bad news because you're just in the damn plane. You didn't go out. It's bad news when they're up on the top and you gotta come down.
That's just.
It's a matter of perspective. So, Mr. Jonesy, you got anything to say about all this?
Yeah, I apologize for jumping out for a minute.
It's okay.
Is that all you're going to say?
Well,
Thanks for coming back for that. That's awesome.
He's being impeccable. He's telling his truth. Hey, I screwed up. Excuse me. All right.
I never gave you my word I was going to stay for the whole show. All right. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I just no, we had the internet shut down because there's lightning and different things, and so I'm using the phone. But I mean, like I said, I missed a lot of what you guys were saying. My original point, and I'm just going to stay with this since I missed what you guys were saying. If I'm repeating what you said, I apologize. But you know, the idea of being impeccable is about who I want to be. Now, there's a lot of things about being a speaker and going and teaching classes the way I do, where that lends itself to credibility. It lends itself to everything else, and it's important. But what's really important is how I see myself when I look in the mirror. What's really important is how I see myself when I open my mouth. That I have less self-doubt. I have more confidence. And the reason I have confidence is because I know this is not going to get me in trouble the way it used to. That I'm not going to just throw shit out there so I can look good and then not be able to deliver. I'm not going to do those things anymore. I am who I am.
Walter Scott.
Yeah. Listen, I always wanted to be somebody else. Lynn, that's a good point. When I was, how old was I then, Lynn? About 11 or 12? 12? 13?
Yeah, 11. We were 11 when we met.
We were 11 when we met. And somewhere between 11 and 14, I developed a second personality. His name was Sir Walter Scott. Now, this is back in the early 80s. I had business cards printed. I handed out business cards to people with Sir Walter Scott. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't even have a freaking bicycle.
He stapled one to my yearbook at the end of my yearbook. No joke, for proof.
And she still has it, and that's sad.
Yeah, I do.
That's very sad.
Over 40 years, yeah.
But a lot of what that was I was surrounded by people that I thought were all better than me. All the people in my life I thought were better than me. Whether it was abusive situations or whether it was just success or whatever it might have been, everybody was better than me. Everybody was stronger than me. Everybody was smarter than me. So I had to keep making things up. And what happened was my word became certainly not impeccable. My word became the tool to build who I was. And I would lie, I would cheat, I would steal, I'd manipulate in a bad way, not the good way like Rex is talking. I'm talking about in a bad way so I can get people to see me a certain way. And as I got older and as I went through my problems and as I've reached the point I'm at now, it's become the polar opposite where I build who I am inside and then I let the truth and the authenticity of me out, and that's being impeccable. Being impeccable is being honest to myself. It doesn't mean always telling the truth. That's not what that means. But it means always telling my best version of what I am right now in my truth. So it's really important. It's important to me. Honestly, I really don't give a shit if people like me or not anymore. I really don't. Honestly, it seems like the more I stop worrying about people liking me, the more people that actually do like me. When I wanted everybody to like me, I came off as a jackass. I was Sir Walter Scott. So this is an inside job for me. The impeccable with my word is inside. The more work I do on the inside, the more that when things come out of me, they are my truth and it's authentic. And I feel better about me today because of that. So,
being a New Yorker and going to school the same place as he did and stuff, we definitely weren't taught that. And I think that's why we were so close, because we could be together and not talk about how the world around us was pretty crummy at the time.
Well, we had a lot of similar things going on in our lives.
And we did.
And you and I kind of we kind of hung together in the corner of the high school hallway saying, this life is killing us. Right?
Yeah. And so, it's one of those things where, I wish and I know that if we could change the world by people and kids knowing the things we know and help them way sooner than what we had the answer, the world would be a better place. And it is really sad that it takes getting older and wiser to actually know why, the reasons why we should not when we're younger. But, and sometimes people, it doesn't matter if you give them the answer. If they're not ready for it, they're not going to get it. And, everybody's got to learn their lessons. But I think the thing that's funny is we all ask for questions to be answered, and all you got to do is look around or listen, and the answers are there. But most people don't do that either. So
the challenge a lot of times for parents is that they don't have the space, capacity, or even time to fulfill all the curiosity their children have.
Yeah.
Now, nowadays, it's actually a bit easier because most kids have smartphones now, so they can do any research they want, Google it type thing. However, one of the challenges, because in my coaching work with relationships, a lot of the singles, what they're dealing with without them realizing it, is stuff their parents visited upon them, basically. So definitely in our lineage, in our history, in the way that our parenting happens, we tend to pick up habits from the way our parents acted around us. And so to learn how to be independent. So, okay. Thank you, Debbie.
Well, I think Scott and I can speak for Scott and I to say, we are both blessed because of what we went through, and we tried to change things when we had kids, though we failed. We're both blessed to have our kids still love us. And
yeah,
we,
which is let me finish the point. So we get to
okay,
this.
Go ahead.
It's important to realize is that one of the gifts we have in our lifetime when we become adults is we can end hereditary patterns by changing the way we act around your kids as well. Maybe you didn't do it as successfully as you wanted with your kids, but they can be the ones that end that hereditary pattern too, that may go back for 7, 8 generations of behavioral stuff that you didn't realize you were carrying. So the good news is there's always a chance to change, always opportunity to change and grow. This thing about being impeccable with your word is, can you be vulnerable and honest? Like, Steve was saying earlier about being vulnerable on stage. Can you be vulnerable in your conversation with people, even to the frigging shopkeepers and the wait staff? Not to tell them your life story, but to be open and honest with them, because that can open you up to a whole new conversation. I was doing a friend of mine recently said that basically they started talking to somebody else and just share what was going on for them. Next thing they know, they got a client because they told them what they did, and the person said, I want to work with you because I like the way you talk to me. So being impeccable with your word and being honest and being vulnerable are gifts that we can give people because they don't get it very often. So we can be way showers that way.
Yeah.
I think that's our opportunity, to be observant and to listen and to, take the years of experience and take the time that we've put on the planet and invest it in somebody else. I mean, why would you want to learn all sorts of stuff and experience all sorts of stuff and then not share it? Yeah, it just makes no sense whatsoever, and it's funny. I've gone to this background of the British Virgin Islands because it's Peggy and my favorite spot on the planet. And somebody said, why do you have that back there? I said,
why not?
Because it's awesome. And, it's such an easy answer, right? And he said, believe it or not, I got my captain's license in the channel right behind your left shoulder. And I said, you know what? And I dove in that channel on Blonde Rock at 55 feet and had a conversation with a tortoise, on the coral head, and all of a sudden we started talking about just fun stuff because we had a desire to talk about fun stuff. You know, why are we're so wrapped around the axle all the time?
Right.
You know, we're so tense and we're so this and we're so that. And it was so funny. Again, I was very fortunate to do this event this weekend. And, you know, I'm back in the green room with some pretty cool people who people know their names a whole lot more than they know my name. And we're sitting there laughing and just saying stupid stuff. And you know, they were just them. They weren't trying to be anything else. You know, they were just having fun, relating to everybody there. And even one of the girls that takes care, you know, kind of the handlers and everything, she came up and she said, "Thank you for being so nice to me today." I said, "Heck, I wasn't near as nice to you as you've been to me all day." I mean, come on. And
Right.
but it's so, you know, people don't get that. And so it's not, you don't have to go that far to make a big difference.
Right.
You know, and if you just, I would encourage people, just get in the groove of saying something nice to somebody once a day, and then go to twice, and then see what happens. You know, it's really incredible. I had so much fun on this summit with Rex, and Rex was so gracious. He even reached out and he goes, "So how was the experience for you?" I went, "I don't know. It was great." I had the opportunity to work towards helping people, and hopefully I did. It was awesome to be asked, and I'm honored. Does it have to be any more than that? You know, and I think that people tie such big strings on things. You know, there's just this attachment that is so hard. Why? You know, again, I learned a great lesson over the last few weeks. When you think you're surrendered, surrender more. You know, just
Love that.
give it up.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, that surrender, is letting go of the ego. That's why people have a hard time finding out who they are, because ego is controlling them. It did for me for most of my life. I mean, there is a price to pay to be who you are, but the price is well worth it if you strive for it and you're willing to pay the consequences for who you are. That means realizing the mistakes that you made. That means realizing that you weren't you for most of your life. It means realizing that there was another part of you, the big mouth inside your head, as I call it, or the ego, or the devil, as some people call it, which is a little melodramatic, but if you listen to it, will be hell to pay. So, but I'm just saying it. But you know, we're all related in so many ways. But the biggest way is that we all understand what we're all saying here. And for people who are listening that don't get it, you've got to speak your truth.
Yeah.
And speaking your truth is admitting who you are no longer or who you weren't. And that's not easy for people to do. It's the biggest lesson I learned in my life. And I'm still learning it. I was in an elevator after an incredible speech for the $1 Million Roundtable, and there was a guy, I knew he was very prestigious, a multi, if not a billionaire. And he said to me, he goes, "I will pay you handsomely." This is as the elevator door was closing. He held the door open. There were 4 other people in the elevator with me. "I will pay you handsomely for you to talk to me and tell me your truth." I said, "I would love to, but I would never take your money because I don't know my truth yet. I'm still searching for it." And when I said that, he wanted to pay me even more for saying that. And of course, I didn't take his money, but I did take his number. We talked, and we have a wonderful relationship. But I was willing to say to him, I could have said to him, "Okay, great. You know, my ego could have taken," but I didn't. I'm still searching for who I am. And I think we all are. And to admit that is the most powerful thing you could ever say to yourself.
I love that, Steve. I love that. And it's, you know, the funny thing is the truth is whatever we're in right now is our truth.
That's my point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And where I am right now may not be where I'll be five
it'll be
weeks
different
from
tomorrow.
now.
It'll be different tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Scott Schilling for 1 second. Scott, you were talking about the kindness of just simple words, the kindness of just a nice gesture or a nice word, a compliment, those kindnesses. so many people step over those small little moments to get to the big grandiose moments. You know, it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to step over being nice to everybody, but then at the end of the day, I'm going to give everybody a car. But we miss all these wonderful opportunities to truly make real connections, and those small moments is where they really count. Is that kind of what you were getting at there? Because
Yeah,
I don't want to misunderstand it.
No, absolutely. You know, it's the little things that add up to be big things, and it doesn't take that much. And I want to brag on one of my buddies, Sean G. Murphy, and I love hanging with him, and it irritates the hell out of me every time he does it, because we'll be out together, and you know, we'll walk into a place or whatever, and before I get a chance to say anything, he'll go, I just want to say thank you for all those people who haven't thanked you today. Thank you for working so hard for so many people.
Wow.
And it's like, damn it, he beat me to it again. You know, but it's something he does consistently. And so it doesn't take much to be, you know, I've had it. It was funny because somebody looked at a slide that I had, and I had Peggy and I, we're both smiling, and my son, and he's smiling, and my daughter, and she's smiling, and it looks like Wilson, our poodle, is smiling. And everybody said, what, does everybody in your family smile? And I said, I guess so. You know, I never looked at it that way, right? But those are the little things, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do if you just smile at somebody. There's no cost involved. There's no pressure. There's no words. You don't have to answer. And yet it will change the dynamic so quickly. And it changes the dynamic for at least two people, you and them.
Yes.
And so when you do that, it's, you know, again, I watched some people with an Uber driver this week just go, fantastic. You know, Francisco, how are you? So honored that you're our driver. Now, how many people say that to an Uber driver? But these guys were doing that, and you should have seen the grin on his face. You know, just the feeling of, hey, I'm not just an Uber driver. I'm a human being. Yeah. And that's what it is, Scott. It's those little things. And that's, again, how you do anything is how you do everything. You know, you just got to keep on. And I wasn't always like I am today, but I would suggest that everybody here isn't always like they are today. We've grown into whatever it is through our experiences and the various things that we've had happen in our lives. And when you start to understand that smiling and laughing and having fun is having fun. It's more fun to have fun than not have fun. Why not have fun? Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Have fun just for the fun of it.
So,
you know,
the whole thing, John Hurt, if he had not said, I am not an animal, but said, I am not just an Uber driver and Elephant Man, think of how the whole movie would be different.
Way to pull that together, Rex.
And there's a horse somewhere. Never mind.
It's a pony, not a horse.
I did want to add one or 2 points. One is you know, there are people who want to make changes and they don't, you know, and they get upset with themselves because they can't do it. And we talk about managing mindset or managing your emotions or managing your words or managing your behaviors. If you manage any one of those things, you will change your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and your words. Because imagine this, you know, you go to the gym, you like going to the gym, and now for some reason you can't go. You know, you've got appointments, you got time. What happens to the internal dialogue? I should be in the gym. I would be doing this. So anyway, you know, your thoughts are, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or this sucks, or this, that. Now something changes and you get to the gym, and now you're back in the gym. How does your thought change? Oh, this is great. I'm back in the gym. I'm doing my thing. I mean, so whether you change your thinking or you change your behavior or you change your words or you change your feelings, change something that lets you move forward in a positive way, because they have an effect on each other. It's not one or the other. They're mutually inclusive, not exclusive. I want to do something that I don't know if I've ever done this here, and if I have, and I haven't, da 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 da. No,
I was just going to say,
Oh, damn it.
I was just going to say, you're not going to sing, are you? Oh,
No.
God.
But I write a daily blog, and I would encourage people to read today's blog. It's Why You Should Keep the Faith, Carl's Story. And it's at gratitudeactivator.com. So, we can put it in the chat or something like that. But I encourage you to read it. It's a story about Carl, who is not getting his due, and what happened to help him get his due, or to help rehabilitate his reputation and what that meant to him and the people around him. So, and I encourage you to do that because little things matter, and expectations matter, and what you expect of yourself and other people makes a huge difference. So again, the name of the blog, or the name of the post today, is Why You Should Keep the Faith, Carl's Story, at gratitudeactivator, all one word, .com.
I think I'll get that posted here.
Okay.
I want to say that people should go back to YouTube and look up Scott Schilling and Debbie Bettendorf. And I just want you to know that interview there. Scott's too hipster. He is very vulnerable in his humble beginnings. And like he said, he's not the way he used to be. He does share some vulnerable stuff of how he was and how things changed. And I think that's worth watching too, because sometimes people see where people are successful now, but they don't realize they had a lot of lessons to learn to get where they're at. So, and he's become more impeccable since then to now. And I love him so much. And I love everybody here. Steve surprised me by texting me at the last minute and being here. We've missed you. We love you. And
good to
Barry,
see you, Steve.
I've been traveling a lot. That's why I haven't been on.
Yep.
And I see my grandkids on Tuesdays now since school is out. So.
Yeah. And Barry's always faithful in here too. And I love and appreciate him. I did get to say hi to Pitter the other day, and I automatically thought of you when I did. And so it's just so, we're just so blessed how we're all so connected here. We've got like a minute each if you want to give some final words here. We'll start with Mr. Rex in the middle, I guess.
Oh, perfect. This has been a pleasure. It's been great. I love my brothers and sister, and you're all fabulous, and you all deserve incredible kudos and blessings in every way, shape, or form. If you go back and you review the show, if you don't know because you didn't notice it, Bailey made an appearance.
I love Bailey.
And
I met her in person.
Bailey made an appearance, and I barely noticed that she was making an appearance, but Bailey and Sasha are here, and they are remarkable spirits and incredible beings, and I'm blessed with the opportunity to be with them for as long as we're together, and I couldn't be happier. So with that, I would just say to always take advantage of the fact that you're surrounded by people who love you and who you love, and never for a second forget that. Remember it always.
Love you, Rex. And Mr. Barry.
Barry.
Well, I don't have any dogs around me at the moment, so I can't copy that. But one thing I'll say that came up is that it's sometimes so easy to think that we're less than we are. I mean, it's like knocking ourselves down, and we're very good at saying negative things to ourselves. The truth is, it's easier to say good things to ourselves, but we don't know that. So, homework assignment to anybody watching is if you can come up with 2, 3, 5 things you can say to yourself in the mirror every morning that are positive. Maybe the fact you said, I woke up on time, or I brushed my teeth, or it could be, I feel great about myself. Whatever it is, do those 3 or 4 or 5 those things every morning for 30 days. Your life's going to change.
Okay, I tried to put a link to Rex's Clubhouse / whatever, and it came out really mumble jumbled. So I'm sorry about that if it didn't work. I love that, Barry. Thank you so much, Mr. Steve Rizzo.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna repeat what I said a little earlier when I said that there's a price to pay to be who you are, and there really is, but it's well worth it. I know, and I'm not going to mention any names, so many well-known speakers, and I've had personal conversations with them at dinner or whatever. Maybe they're at my house or I was at theirs, and they told me things about their past that they don't want anyone to know. And I was shocked. And I said, why wouldn't you reveal that to your audience? That you had an addiction to cocaine, or that you had a drinking problem, or that you had this or that. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, I don't want them to know that part of me. And I said, well, they have a right to know that part of you, and you have a responsibility to tell them. And it was amazing. Different people, but they all stood on guard with their belief that, no, I'm not going to tell anyone. And I said, don't you understand that you're revealing a part of yourself that's vulnerable, that there are people in the audience may be experiencing the same crap that you went through, and they're looking at you as someone who has answers. And if they realize that you went through what you did go through, that there's hope for them. Why wouldn't you want to tell them that, on how you beat that and how you became the person that you are? And I think that I said that for this reason, because we bring that into our relationships with people, with people who are meeting and they get married, and all of a sudden you're married for a while, and then the other person goes, well, how come I didn't know that part about themselves, about that person? How come I didn't know this about that person? Well, because you weren't vulnerable enough to let the person know that you're not perfect, that you do have flaws, and that you do have a past, and that past isn't maybe as perfect as you thought I was. My point is that if we could reveal that part of ourselves in all of our relationships, business, personal, and otherwise, even with our children, sometimes our children look at us as like, wow, well, they have the answers. I told my son the stuff that I tell my grandkids, the shit that I went through and how I overcame it. And I think by doing that, they're going to be in a better place to learn life's lessons. I hope what I just said made sense, but I think it did.
It does. And I think you said it for me because, I'm really ashamed of my health issues and things that I don't like people seeing me in my condition and all this stuff. And I feel like you said that to me because I'm going to start sharing what I'm going through. And I'm excited about the next year of my life because I have doctors that are doing what they can for me. And nothing makes me feel so finally matter and realize that my x-rays, the doctor said I should be in a wheelchair and they can't believe I'm still walking. So I'm just saying that you said that stuff for me because
I said it for everyone because we all have shit. Either we have it or we had it. And if you had it, I think it's your responsibility to let people know in your life that, you know what, I went through this, but this is how I beat it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well,
that's what it means to be impeccable. Your impeccable word is who you really are.
Sometimes we forget that we even mattered. That's, as a mother, I think that's where I'm coming from, that respect.
Okay.
So cool. I appreciate you saying that. And so thank you for saying that. And I think it's Mr. Hipster or next,
yes.
Right? Yes. Okay.
What you were just saying.
Thank you, Steve.
Made me think of what happened in New York City earlier this week with an influencer offering to give away a PS5 and a this and a that, and hundreds of thousands of people came out and just created destruction. It's like, for what? Number one, is the influencer really that influential? Probably not. And why did the people take the actions that they took? Why do we have to go? And that's so ego based from what you were saying earlier, Steve, right? And you get rid of that ego base and you just find, I think I don't know, maybe it's me, just coming into a gentler, kinder, nicer time on the planet.
Yeah.
Than having to do all the other stuff that doesn't make so much sense. Why not invest in each other? By investing in each other, I quote Zig Ziglar multiple times every day. You can have everything in life you want when you help enough other people get what they want. Zig was one of the nicest, most gentle men. Now, phenomenally effective sales guy. He was really good at his craft, but he was a great human being doing it. Those are the people to emulate.
You're the one of them, Hipster.
Thank you.
This has been a great show. We are at 1 hour here, Mr. Jonesy. Any last words before I click the end button?
Yeah, I just want to bring everybody back to the past a little bit. Some of you guys might not remember this.
Go ahead, rub it in.
He was.
Listen, everybody was just brilliant as always. Steve, so good to have you back in the mix, man. I hope you can come back more. It's never easy just to be yourself in a society that tells you who you are isn't good enough. But if enough of us step forward and say, screw you, I am who I am, practice small kindnesses, and certainly just be impeccable with your word, we could change this planet. It doesn't take much. Stop looking for the grandiose. Stop giving away houses and cars, and start lending a hand to somebody who needs it. We can make a different world. I appreciate going on this journey every week with you guys. And until something better comes on CBS on Tuesday nights, we're going to keep this going. All right.
Amen. Love you guys. Bye.
Take care.
See ya.
Steve Rizzo, Barry Selby, Scott Schilling, and Rex Sykes. Go stalk them and figure out who they are. See ya.
Keeping me safe and sound.